Groundbreaking, even game-changing. That's what some experts and advocates say about two new tools in the fight against cervical cancer. I'm Lee Zurich.
And I'm Tisha Powell. These latest developments aim to expand access to life-saving screening because cervical cancer can be treatable and survivable with early detection. The problem is not everyone is getting screened, which traditionally involves a pelvic exam in a doctor's office.
According to the CDC, about half of women who get cervical cancer weren't screened as recommended before their diagnosis. And an American Cancer Society study published in 2025 shows cervical cancer screening rates are down 14% since 2019, a decline that started during the COVID pandemic and has yet to rebound.
Reporter Heather Graff explains the existing barriers and recent FDA approvals that put the power of prevention into a woman's own hands.
This was the day I found out I had cancer.
When Toni Cooper Towler snapped this selfie back in October 2017,
I was at work.
She had no idea a life-altering phone call would come just a few hours later.
So I answered, and she said, "Ms. Cooper, I regret to inform you that we have detected you have cervical cancer, stage 2.
Toni's mind went instantly to her 3 young children.
I was really scared because it was just me, and I had 3 people depending on me.
But today, she shares her story as a proud survivor of cervical cancer, a disease that claims the lives of more than 4,000 U.S. women every single year.
Everyone needs to know about it. Everyone needs to know the damage it can do, but also everyone needs to know you could minimize the damage if you just get yourself checked.
Toni says her cancer was caught early during a routine pap smear. And as a patient turned advocate, she now knows that's one of 2 proven screening methods. Experts say the other is an HPV test to detect the human papillomavirus that causes almost all cases of cervical cancer. Both tests are done in a doctor's office using a speculum to scrape cells from the cervix. And while the procedures can be uncomfortable for some women, they're considered highly effective.
Are cervical cancer deaths preventable?
Almost entirely. We never speak in absolute terms, but sure, the vast majority are preventable.
But not everyone is getting screened.
Right.
Why is that?
The first thing would be socioeconomic. You have to look at people maybe they don't have insurance, perhaps they just don't have access to health care. Another thing can be something as simple as, can you get time away from work? What about transportation if your clinic is not nearby? And shame and stigma. Cervical cancer screening for a lot of patients, understandably, can be awkward, can be off-putting.
Fred Wyand is with the National Cervical Cancer Coalition and says the hope is newly approved screening options could help remove some of those barriers for patients.
There's sort of a trend in public health about really trying to meet people where they are. This is just part of that evolution.
In May of 2024, the FDA gave the green light to what's known as self-collection HPV tests for use in a healthcare setting. That means you'd still go to the doctor's office, but a pelvic exam would no longer be required. Instead, patients can choose to use one of these kits containing a small swab or brush to collect their own vaginal sample in a private room. After that, it's sent to a lab for HPV testing. And if it comes back positive, there would be a follow-up appointment to talk next steps with the doctor.
How significant is this development, would you say?
I think this is a very significant, very major development. And I do want to reassure people that multiple countries around the world have actually been using this for a number of years.
Dr. Kathy McLaughlin is a Mayo Clinic family physician who specializes in cervical cancer prevention.
It looks like this.
And showed us the self-collection test she began offering to patients in clinic as of February 2025.
Essentially, it is kind of like inserting a junior tampon or a very narrow tampon to collect this sample.
Less invasive, she believes, than traditional screening methods.
I'm thrilled that we've had almost 100 people do this in just 2 months. And these are really people that I truly believe would otherwise not have been screened.
Meanwhile, the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force has moved to endorse self-collection for cervical cancer screening, writing in its draft recommendation that studies show this option is just as accurate as when the HPV sample is collected by a clinician.
we can save lives.
Professor Jennifer Smith of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill has spent years looking at not just the accuracy of self-collection, but also women's willingness to try it. In one study, her team mailed at-home HPV self-collection kits to hundreds of patients who were overdue for screening.
And overwhelmingly, women returned the kit back, and we found that they found the process of self-collection and mailing highly acceptable, which was really, really very important.
That's why she was supportive, but perhaps not surprised, when in May of 2025, the FDA signed off on the first ever at-home alternative to the Pap smear. Similar to those previously approved for self-collection in a healthcare setting, except this test has been cleared for virtual prescriptions and can be mailed directly to a patient's house.
Self-collection is obviously a way that we can increase access.
It's a message that resonates with Toni Cooper Towler ever since she endured a hysterectomy and was eventually declared cancer-free.
You can survive. You can survive.
So when she learned self-collection cervical cancer screening is now a reality in the doctor's office and also at home,
That is amazing.
this survivor called it a groundbreaking advancement in preventive health care.
With the technology that we have now, you don't have to miss a beat. You really don't have to.
A company called Teal Health developed a device that secured that first ever FDA approval for at-home cervical cancer screening. They call it the Teal Wand.
So it's actually the length of a tampon. And the way it works is, you just insert it. It's designed for all bodies, so you really just go as far as comfortable for you. And then it's a soft sponge that you rotate 10 times and you collect the sample.
That's Kara Egan, the CEO of Teal Health, showing us the device, which she says will first be available in California, though the company is working to expand to other states. Egan told us the goal is to eventually get to the point where any doctor can prescribe this at-home test and insurance will cover it. It's also worth noting self-collection is already an option for other routine screenings in the U.S., such as colorectal cancer. Still, one thing we heard from everyone we spoke to is that self-collection for cervical cancer screening cannot and should not replace actual appointments with a doctor for follow-up after the screening and for other health needs as well.
Experts say the HPV vaccine is another tool that's shown to be helpful to prevent cervical cancer.
That vaccine was first introduced in the U.S. in 2006. Since then, more than 135 million doses have been administered. If your son or daughter is between the ages of 9 and 12, the American Cancer Society recommends you talk to their doctor about vaccination against HPV.